Good evening, everybody, and welcome to this meeting of the Finance and Public Service Overview and Scrutiny Panel meeting. Kick things off then with the evacuation process. I think everybody that's here tonight has been here before. There are no visitors, so I'm okay with you. We'll dispense with that. We all know what we're doing. Meeting has been live streamed on the Council's YouTube channel and recorded for future publication on the Council's website. Can I please ask you to make sure you've either turned your phones to silent or turned them off, please. Moving on to item 2, apologies. We have apologies from Councillor Harbison, who's substituted by Councillor Walsh, Councillor J. Sargent, who's substituted by Councillor Condacor, and we have apologies from Councillor T. Shepherd. To substitutes, thank you very much for attending in tonight as substitutes. Moving on to the minutes of the last meeting. Everybody okay with the minutes of the meeting? Can I have a proposer, please? Thank you, Councillor Kenner. Councillor Beetham, second. With your permission, then I will sign the minutes. Give me 1 second while I sign those off. Great. So, moving on to declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest not printed in the schedule? Councillor Condacor.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Because I'm a substitute, they're not on the schedule, but they're the same as last night's cabinet, full council. It's basically 100% Renewables UK Limited, and I'm a self-employed engineer stroke statistician.
Thank you, Councillor Condacor. Anybody else? Councillor Walsh?
Likewise, Chair, mine is the same as printed last night in the main council meetings agenda.
Thank you, Councillor. Okay, so moving on to public consultation. I'm informed we have no members of the public here tonight, so great. Move on to item 6 then. Questions to Cabinet. We have Councillor Croft here tonight. Councillor Markham sends her apologies. So, do we have any questions at all? We have 20 minutes or so available on this. So, if anybody has any questions for Cap, thank you. Councillor Condacor.
Thank you, Chair. I've got a couple of questions for Councillor Croft. Firstly, it's great that the contract has been selected for the Bedworth Leisure Centre, Sports Hub or whatever we're calling it. But I think it's the same contract as building our hotel, which obviously puts us lots of risk in. Do we have an idea, because it says it's a £25 million contract, if we have still exposure to inflation and all the materials? Because obviously with wars and everything else going on, there's a big potential problem if the cost of steel and the leisure centre contract goes up. So I know the hotel, Councillor Wilson told us that was a fixed price contract, but it'd be useful to have an idea about the risk from the leisure centre inflation. And my second question was about nabcell, because in the paperwork it says we're 100,000 down due to a lot of voids in nabcell. I assume that's COVID related. And I didn't know whether that was been rectified now or whether that's something we have to plan for the long term. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm not going to go into the great details of the contract tonight in the committee. I can give them a more detailed written answer on it. My understanding is that there is scope for price growth in the contract. We try and write them on the basis of as fixed price as possible, but it's always been on the cards that it would increase. That was what we were always told when we went to the government for more money. That's one of the reasons why we pitched for the highest amount possible that we could get under the scheme. So I can give a more detailed answer on that. As for nabcell, like he says, the problem with it's been very difficult to get rented properties out given COVID. So I can consult with the nabcell board and come to him back with a more detailed answer on that. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Councillor Condacor, you have a further question?
Yeah, I had a question for Councillor Markham. Maybe someone could pass it on. It's great news about the new cycling route, and someone said 9,000 now people have used it, and people asking on the internet how on earth we're measuring that. So I don't know if anyone knows here or whatever, but also the new council's magazine is out, which is the replacement for In Touch, which said 190 people using it an hour, which is clearly not right. So it'd be useful to get some usage stats and some idea, because it is really, really successful. So it was just an idea to have an idea. Are we counting them going around once per loop or whatever? Because there has been a lot of interest in those figures put out. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. I think we can arrange for Councillor Markham to supply a written answer to that question. Thank you. Councillor Croft, you've got off very lightly tonight. Whilst we have you here, is there anything else that you wish to? Thank you. That's great. In which case we can move forward then to item 7. And tonight's meeting is somewhat unusual in that it's a hybrid meeting for the benefit of people who may be watching on YouTube, in that the officers presenting the reports will be presenting them on Teams, whereas we here in the chamber can ask questions. So it's the first time we've tried this, and we hope it works.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for allowing me to present my performance report in this way, and help to sort of build on the hybrid working process. The report tonight is a waste management performance report that gives a snapshot of the duties and the roles that we perform in waste management, and how we're performing year on year in those services. So if we could please take a look at slide 3. This is the overall view of our waste management operations, including green waste, the dry recycling, and general household. If we can just take a look at 21-22, we can see a sort of a downward turn in the amount of waste and recycling that's been produced, and we've seen that it's online to sort of level out at the pre-COVID levels that where we saw a spike in material that was being presented at curbside, and we felt that this was due to home working and a change in the way that people sort of marketed and purchased their items, and the new ways of shopping. But now we think that the gradual return to work has had an effect on that, and we're seeing a levelling out of what we could expect normally for our operations. We have this year included a dark red recycling contamination figure, because even though these changes in shopping and mindset may have levelled out in other areas, we are seeing a gradual increase in contamination at curbside, which we saw the start of an increase in 2020 with COVID, and that's gradually sort of increased it's increased how we look at the materials that's in the actual recycling, and that has an effect at the end processor, where that is obviously contamination or non-target material, and is not accepted and has to go for disposal. But we're monitoring that and tracking it. We are expecting it to see a little more increase over the coming months. But hopefully that will, with increased marketing and communications, we can start to reduce that level, with the potential for using messaging on our refuse vehicles, and some of the useful video messaging that Councillor Markham has been putting out during the Coventry driver strike. Could we, looking at slide 4, We've included this slide because what we wanted to show was the sort of the volatility of the end market recycling purchases, and just showed how the swing in material prices can have an effect on our certain expenditure and income that we sort of, you know, we can look to sort of recoup. Just the average, you know, increase on materials has gone up significantly from the quarter four in 2000 and up to 2021. And if you take a look at the mixed plastics, that's gone up from £25 a tonne to £236 a tonne. And we think that nobody really knows why this happens. We did feel that the market was saturated with paper, card, plastics, with the way that people were undertaking their sort of living during COVID. And now we think that with again that gradual return to work and the need for these materials, it's actually increased more than the market could have envisaged, or even that we sort of projected. So slide 5. This is the subscription numbers and rates for our garden waste collection service, which still remains at £40 per bin, and we can see that there is a slight downturn in subscriptions for this year, and we partially feel that may well be due to the economic situation at the moment, where the cost of living obviously is on people's minds, and it may be sort of putting a lag on subscriptions at the cost of something else. So therefore, we do hope that with the onset of better weather, the subscriptions will even out, and we're certainly monitoring the level of income that's being generated to make sure that we can we can forecast any sort of any issues with that moving forward. Again, with the onset of marketing on side of refuse vehicles, we're hopefully we'll sort of kickstart the subscriptions through the warmer months to levels that we've seen in previous years. And slide 5 is a breakdown of the subscriptions by ward, where we are at February 22. We are seeing an 8.8% sort of decrease in subscriptions up to the same point in 2021. But again, we're hoping that these will rally through the warmer months when people realise that £40 for the service is it's well worth the money, and it stops all this sort of the hassle of having to take garden waste, etc., to the household waste recycling centres. So on to slide 7. This is a snapshot of our street cleansing operations that we sort of undertake, and that's for all our sweeping, litter bin, emptying, litter picking, weed removal, fly tip waste removal, dog fouling, and our river clearance team waste that comes through the street cleansing process. The majority of this waste comes through our transfer station at Gresham Road, and as you can see, it's fairly consistent in the material that we pick up from our streets on a yearly basis. And again, you can see a significant drop in fly tipping tonnages that we've experienced in 21-22, and on the next slides you'll see the reasons. I think that we're seeing that drop in tonnage. So again, moving on to slide 8. This is our clinical collections for waste that's not is deemed cytotoxic and is not accepted in our black bin service. We do we do and have recognised the fact that a review is long overdue, to have an audit of the customers. We compared to other local authorities, we have a high level of customers that we service, and obviously it needs to be undertaken with tact and diplomacy. But we're hoping that with a review we can transfer some of the waste that we collect through clinical, and that goes to Leamington Spa and incineration, into our black waste, and thus saving some operational costs that we incur with these collections. Excuse me. And as you can see, 2021 we did have an increase in the number of customers registering on the clinical waste service, which highlights the need for that review. So moving on to slide 9. This again is our bulky waste collection services, which has always been very well received. If you look at the forecasted details for 2020, 21, 22, we're expecting an increase in the number of users of the service, and we feel that obviously whilst needing to remain competitive with other providers, we also need to be mindful of our operational costs, and that a review of the sort of item costing is probably required moving forward, just to bring us in line with obviously inflation and other competitors out there, whilst not pricing ourselves out of the market and causing ourselves increased problems, further down the line with fly tipping, etc. So that's a sort of a delicate process that we need to look at. So moving on to fly tipping that I referred to earlier, as you can see, the 21-22 figures are significantly lower than the 2021 figures, and apart from the spike in April, which we have no sort of reason to know why that was, but consistently month on month it's lower than the previous year, and this directly has a correlation with the enforcement services that we've employed in the last couple of years. And we can see that if we move on to slide 11, this again are the figures for the littering and fly tipping, where you can see that the amount that was issued for fly tipping in 2020 was significantly lower than 21, and that obviously has then had an impact on people's recognition that they are being watched, and we have an enforcement presence, and that we will take action. We will sort of follow up on any indiscriminate waste offences, and that you're not under a cloak anymore, and we are prepared to move forward with these actions. And obviously the payment rate for fly tipping is more than half, and 69% of litter picking fixed penalty crimes are the fixed penalties are paid, and we do follow through these with court action through the magistrates process. So again, just to support that fly tipping capability and enforcement capability, we are in the process of purchasing some covert cameras that will assist and enable us to look at some of the more remote areas that aren't possible to put some of the overt cameras, and it will mean that a greater number of offences hopefully will be detected, and we'll have a greater evidence base to move them onto prosecution, and have the penalties that they deserve for this type of illegal activity. Some of the cameras on there are a little bit antiquated, I'm afraid. The the utility marker there is one of them that is a very popular camera, and these are all decoy cameras, obviously, with the capability of hopefully blending into the surrounding areas. Each camera has a capability of 3 cameras internally, giving a more than 180 degrees view of a location. and you know, we've looked to purchase a number of these where we can certainly cover an area, you know, and give us a greater possibility of detecting these offences. Slide 13 is just a what we do snapshot of services. Sometimes it's lost in translation that we only collect bins and maybe pick up litter, but we have a very healthy sort of a service provision for residents. And as you can see, bin collections and you know, are just a small proportion, along with the litter picking. We have support services through transport, transport team enforcement, education. We're moving forward on education, and this excuse me, this directly again correlates with the achievements that we've undertaken so far in 21-22 with the purchasing of new vehicles to support these services, and hopefully also commit to our climate change statement with the new engines and particulate filters in these vehicles. And of course we're sort of looking at future years with the onset of EV vehicles and what the you know, the future holds in terms of waste and transport, to you know, to look at alternate fuels. We've already had an electric vehicle incorporated into the new enforcement contract, which hopefully will help us in those endeavours. So all the patrolling that is undertaken in Nuneaton and Bedworth, you know, the mode of transport will be as economic and as energy efficient, and reduce the carbon footprint as best it can. We're again looking for new fleet livery on the vehicles, as I previously mentioned, which will get key messages out to residents. We are committed to community litter picks, and we have a healthy portfolio of communities that work with us in, you know, for litter picking and other initiatives, which we are more than happy to work with and have sort of a healthy relationship. We've looked at the way that we undertake training and how we deliver that and what's best for the employees, and our health and safety packs that we've created have been well received by staff, and we'll be looking to maybe put that all electronic for the staff to access when they have the opportunities, to stop the need for the updates, but also to invest in our staff to bring them into the ways that you know, the electronic sort of management of information. The Riverside Waste Clearance Team is now firmly established. This will be marketed out to other local authorities and internal services, which we're working with Parks and Countryside at the moment to do some river clearance work at Riversley Park. We've also undertaken some works for Glenn Hooper's team for culvert clearance, and that's really is part of the commitment to keeping all our waterways clear for residents, and a fast response to flightives that are an eyesore that generally wouldn't be removed unless it's an expensive call to a waste removal firm. all the people you can see in the slide are trained fully up to emergency responders standards, and they will, you know, continue to have ongoing training throughout the years. Again, our rerouting of waste collection rounds, although it's had to take a back seat, we are now at the point where We have updated maps, including all of the new developments that are coming on board within the borough, and obviously we need to consult with staff and unions, but we think that we're not too far away now to having a complete mapping of those routes where we can look, and then we'll start a comms plan with local residents to let them know what the changes will be and give them all the information necessary for us to have a smooth changeover to the new seven routes. And lastly, the last bullet point is something that we're particularly proud of. We're working with Oakwood School to introduce students with learning difficulties into the working environment, whereby they can gain experience and have the confidence to work alongside people which they wouldn't normally have access to. And we are looking to build on that to increase not only the amount of days that they are able to attend, but also the amount of placements that we can accommodate. It's all supported with work coaches from the school, and we work very closely with the staff from there, and hopefully and all of the feedback from the work coaches. There's nothing but praise for the the way that our staff have welcomed the students, and are more than happy to support us in that increase of students. So thank you, Chair, for the opportunity to submit this report. I'm happy to take any questions that members may have.
Any member? Councillor Walsh first, then Councillor Kenner. Councillor Walsh.
Thank you, Chair. Just with reference to one of the earlier slides regarding the contaminated waste, what do you consider is contaminated waste, and what type of waste are you receiving that falls into that category?
Okay, so a number of the contaminated waste that we have in the body of the bin can be as innocuous as the card that should be placed in the caddy. Obviously, we run a dual stream system that separates those two materials. But we've seen bags of black refuse, household waste, an ironing board, dead animals. You name it. We can look at there's a number of materials that we have in that's either classed as non-target or contamination, and we undertake audits, several audits throughout the month at different locations, and it really is a cross section of materials that we do see placed into the bins that should really be in the household waste recyclable bins.
Councillor Walsh, you want to come back on that?
With regards to the contaminated waste that's in the bins, is there any way, or do you apply a sticker or inform the resident that they are putting in something? I'm not suggesting an ironing board as such, but like you said, standard waste, black bin waste being put into the green bin or the brown bin. Do you identify that to the residents?
Yes. The collectors through the contract, they have a bin hanger, and the bin hanger is has the options of what the contaminated waste is, why it's considered contaminated, and obviously what the resident needs to do for to remove the waste, and for future reference. So there is an ongoing sort of update communication service that tries to educate members of the public, and sometimes it can be innocuous. It's done in error, or it's been contaminated by a third party who have not got waste room in their bin. They'll just pop it in somebody else's. But there is that facility built into the collection contract.
Thank you, Chair. Just it's not a question; it's just more of a point on the fly tipping in the report. I think it's really promising to see that fly tipping has fallen so much over the last year. It just shows that as soon as the administration changed in May, fly tipping reduced by a third, and was it the actual number of fines issued increased by about 750%. So it's really promising to see that the policies put in place by the new administration are working. And it's not just, you can't just see the effects on paper, but you can see them in person as well. On my walk to work, there's a particular corner which I'm sure you'd be quite familiar with, Chair, in Ash Green, and I've noticed less and less fly tipping taking place at that location. So it's just promising to see this, and I look forward to seeing more of it in the future. Thank you.
Thank you.
Take it, that's New Road. That's the one. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Councillor Clark.
Thank you, Chairman. Just a couple of points in relation to the presentation, and picking up on, or further to what Councillor Kenay was saying. You mentioned about the overt and covert cameras in relation to catching fly tippers. Will those, I know we're not on the covert ones yet, but will they be reported separately, the prosecutions from them, or are they going to be combined as one whole package? That's my first question, but I have another one as well, if I may, Chair.
We will be led by the Overview and Scrutiny panel. If you would prefer to see that data separated from the normal overt cameras, that's absolutely fine to do that.
I'll come back, Chair. I think, to be honest with you, it might be useful to have the separation so that we can actually identify whether the covert cameras are working better and actually catching the real offenders that think they're going to get away with it, as opposed to the overt ones. So I think,
absolutely,
personally, I'd like to see the separation in the report when it comes to us, and that I welcome the opportunity for that. I'm pleased to hear that you can do that. Going on to my second question, if I may, Chair. You mentioned, I saw you got a new vehicle coming in relation to the jet washing and the removal of graffiti.
Yeah.
I'm just mindful of the fact that obviously the removal of graffiti has to be done at certain times and when there's, the public and that are not around, and it's more in relation to obscene graffiti, but will it help in removing other graffiti in and around the areas, I think is probably my question, not just the obscene graffiti, because obviously we seem to be getting more and more, particularly on bridges and under bridges and things like that. So hopefully there's a greater opportunity. Is there any intention to increase the frequency or the availability to do that? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. Yeah, certainly there is an intention to increase and look at the sort of the more routine tagging, etc., of graffiti. I mean, obviously, the majority of the graffiti removal on private land or private buildings is down to the statutory undertaker, i.e. the owners, or the service that runs them. But and that's by way of notice served under the Highways Act or the Antisocial Behaviour Act. But that, having said that, we currently do private works where we recharge where required. But we will certainly be looking to undertake some of the more routine graffiti and not just the more offensive nature.
Thank you, Chair. Pleased to hear that. Thank you.
I'm about to bring Councillor Condacor in, but I noticed a lot of nods around the chamber here where we're asking for the separation of the data relating to the covert and overt cameras. So I think that there's general consensus that we should have that. So perhaps you can note that, please. Councillor Condacor.
Thank you, Chair. I've got quite a list, so I'll do it in a couple sections. Firstly, the good news, your river cleansing team, cleared out all the culverty bits at Clay Avenue, which is a major undertaking because the drainage ditch is full of silt that runs off from the developments. So real thank you for the team doing that. But we really need to be charging the developers for filling our culverts up with all the silt that runs off, which never used to be there. So can I push again that happens? and also push for the River Anchor in Wellington to be cleaned. On the green waste collections, it's £40 is quite steep for a lot of people in small bungalows who don't generate a lot. And under the last administration, I did keep asking for either a pay-as-you-go or a half-year fee, because obviously if you look at your nice graph, when you get on to June, virtually no one buys a £40 ticket once you get to June. So maybe a half-year £25 ticket for half a year might be a way of getting some more income, but also helping the people with small gardens that actually can't afford the £40, but a half-year ticket. And obviously you've got just as much admin for half a year of the year, so it would be maybe £25 for half a year. But I think that might get us more income. And yeah, I'm a bit concerned about the payment rate for fly tipping FPNs, 53%. It'd be nice to know why the other 47% don't pay, whether we've got the wrong details or they can't pay. And it'd be nice if you have an idea of how much that used to be. Yeah, are we on a... Because you can find more people, or our contractors could, but it could be we're finding people who are giving false names or whatever. So it's good to get a trend on that, because whilst more fines is issued is good, actually more fines paid is even better. So I'll take those to you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Condicourt. Yeah, I've made a note of your inquiries. In general, we've seen over the 3 contracts for enforcement, the general payment rate is fairly consistent. We have looked at why this is, and we do have false details or people who just walk off and don't sort of provide details. We do have a robust checking system that enforcement providers use to confirm whether the details that are provided are correct. And now we have enlisted the help of Warwickshire Police Constabulary to assist in some of these patrols, where they have a greater possibility of obtaining details from offenders. But generally, all the ones that don't pay, obviously, if we have all the details, we do look to put them through magistrates as best we can. So it doesn't stop there. We are looking to prosecute through magistrates via our legal services.
Condicourt, you did say you had more questions.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'm halfway through. On the plastic, you talked about the rates going from £25 to 200 and whatever pounds. That is massively tied in with the oil price and gas price, because obviously plastics are made from oil and gas. So I think we should really, if you can, through our social media, really try and get people to recycle plastics and really push that, because when we got £25 a tonne for it, we didn't get much return for that. Whereas you're getting £230 a tonne at the council, we actually gain by getting people to recycle more plastic. So I think during this oil crisis, rather than going to Russia or all sorts of Arab states, we should be recycling far more plastic. I think it's a good time to be pushing that message, and also pushing the bulk waste message. There's a lot of dodgy waste carriers go on Facebook pages and Twitter saying, I will collect your bulky waste, and I don't see the council on there enough advertising our bulky waste service, which obviously is licensed. So I think that's another area we should really be pushing for our comms and getting responsible collections of bulky waste. And the final thing, Chair, if I may, we were told early in the middle of last year that they'd already bought some fly tipping cameras. So could you just clarify, we had some cameras from the last administration, we bought some new, did we, last year, and then we're buying yet more? Or are these ones you're buying now the ones we said we bought last year? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. If I could just pick up the take the point about the recycling plastics. Obviously, if we can get more of that recycled, obviously it has a benefit to us as well through our income stream as well. The bulky collections, yes, I can agree that that needs to be looked at as a responsible operator. We need to be marketing that service a lot more. Just to confirm that the Environment Agency via DEFRA are looking at the way that waste carriers are and waste controllers are looked at and registered and regulated, and there is a move to sort of to the more environmental permitting side of the operation, which will help control rogue operators that you've mentioned offer a man and a van, and it will be harder for them to sort of avert the registration process. But we'll certainly take that on board. With regards to the cameras, no, the cameras last year were overt cameras that we placed in hotspot areas to deter, would-be waste disposal at those locations. The ones that we will be purchasing now are the covert cameras. It does carry a significantly more onus on the RIPA regulations, where we need authorisation through magistrates. But that, having said that, it will give us a greater flexibility on the more remote areas where, at the moment, these illegal operators think that they're sort of operating under a cloak, and we will certainly have that capability with these cameras.
I'm seeing nobody else indicating to speak, so thank you very much for the report, and I think that's duly noted, and we can take those comments away.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, everybody.
That's good. Katie, would you like to give us your report, please? Item 8.
Thank you, Chair. So the objective of my report is to request the establishment of a members' working party to undertake workshops during the specification development stage of the refresh leisure operator contractor procurement. So to give the background, obviously the incumbent operator of the Nuneaton and Bedworth leisure centre sites is currently SLM, Everyone Active. So in line with the ending of this contract and the impending developments of Bedworth Leisure Centre to create Bedworth Physical Activity Hub, there will be the requirement to review, develop and re-procure the leisure contract for all Nuneaton and Bedworth Borough Council leisure facilities. Officers have already begun the leisure operator procurement process with a soft market testing bidders day that took place at the end of October 2021, with a number of leisure operators to introduce them into the developments, engage interest and propose proposals with these operators. A timeline of actions has now been produced with a proposed date to appoint a new leisure operator in 2025. In order to support with this procurement process, the request is to undertake several member workshops during the specification development stage to identify with members the risks, commercial model, objectives and outcomes of the proposed new contract. There will be a proposal of a minimum of 2 member workshops to take place in May 2022 to discuss the following topics: programming, pricing, concession reuse and risk allocation. The outcome of this contract will be relevant to all residents of Nuneaton and Bedworth. A cross-party members working group is recommended to provide continuity and scope. The proposal is, as I say, that there'll be approximately 2 to 3 working party group meetings required, with the final consensus coming back to the panel in September 2022. The first workshop meeting will need to take place following the elections, with the date stated in the appendices that's attached. It's requested that the chair of OSP selects the workshop members following the elections in time for those first workshops in May. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Are there any questions from any members before we consider the questions that you've asked? Councillor Condacor.
Thank you very much, Chair. One of the problems we have with the council is we're not particularly always diverse, and I think particularly for the leisure operation, I think a members panel does need to have a good mixture of male, female, young, old, etc. So I hope that's considered in the selection. And also, we quite often used to have independent people on these panels. I know we've got one independent member at the moment to our committee here, but I just ask that we try and get it as diverse as possible, because then we get different perspectives.
Okay, I'm sure we can take all of that into account. We seem to have two questions to ask here then, don't we, which is, do we approve the idea of a cross-party member working group to look at it? And if we do we approve the terms of reference or membership timeline that we've been given? Okay, we have a proposal and a second of that. Do we wish to go to a vote on it? All those in favour? Thank you. Great. So, based on that, then I think that we're happy to accept the principle of the cross-party working party as proposed, and so we can now move to the terms of reference point.
So Councillor Condacor didn't vote.
Beg your pardon. Councillor Condacor, do you wish your vote against to be recorded, or do you not wish to vote?
No, as I'm only a guest, I didn't have a strong opinion either way.
Thank you. So we've established the principle that we wish to establish this panel. Do we wish to accept the terms of reference? Proposed?
I'm happy to second that, but it may be necessary to amend those terms of reference when this actual working party is set up. So I think we leave that proviso, the option available, if that's something we can do, Chair.
I think with that proviso, yeah, that's fine. Everybody happy with that? Happy to go to vote on that. All in favour, please show. Anybody against? Thank you, carried. Thank you, Katie. And as you say, we're to look at this immediately after the election, is that correct?
Yes, Chair. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Turn on. Let's get this right. Yeah, moving on to item number 9, the integrated performance report for the third quarter. Can we have the report, please? Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Before I summarise the third quarter information, I'd like to run through what information is actually included in the report. The first piece of information relates to covert surveillance that may or may not be being undertaken, and that's shown in the initial narrative to the report. There then follows a number of appendices. Appendix A links finance data to relevant performance for the current quarter. On this occasion, as requested, 2 performance comparisons are provided for the second quarter and third quarter of this year against the 2019-20 relevant corresponding performance quarters pre-pandemic. There then follows Appendix B, which is the Strategic Risk Register, which is reviewed by myself with directors and management team individually and collectively, because risks are owned individually by directors or by management team as a group. Following that, there's Appendix C, which is the executive summary to the strategic performance report. And this comprises of 19 key performance indicators under the headings finance, people and service delivery, processes and improvement. And that is reviewed monthly by management team and quarterly by cabinet. There then follows Appendix D, which shows a summary of the year-to-date Freedom of Information requests and environmental information requests outside of their designated timescale of 20 days. Similarly, Appendix E shows complaints outside of their designated timescales of 10 days. I just wanted to take a minute to say that although I produce and coordinate all the information for the report, I liaise with managers to get enough commentary to inform the panel of any performance issues. If the panel feels that that's not the case, when you receive the report, if you could review it and then invite managers to attend, should you need more information or maybe you want to discuss potential improvement actions, you can do that via the chair. I'm saying that for two reasons. I think it may have been lost over time, but firstly, because of the regular turnover of panel membership, I'm not sure that all members would be aware of that facility. And secondly, I'm looking to make this agenda item as effective as it can be. So basically, looking at the information, I haven't got the detailed knowledge of the areas concerned, so I couldn't answer specific questions on performance issues. So it's more effective if managers are invited, should you need to, than me to go away and ask those managers to come back with answers at a later date. So I'm now going to move to the third quarter summary. Appendix A shows that of the 20 performance indicators, 8 have improved, 3 declined, 7 stayed the same, and 2 have no trend comparison. The 3 decline measures for the third quarter are processing of private sector disabled facility grants, which was 34 weeks at the end of the third quarter, compared to 16 weeks at the same time last year. Removal of private sector property housing hazard is 11 for 2021-2 compared to 25 last year. And the average time to process planning applications is 110.26 days compared to 77.31 days last year. Moving on to the Strategic Risk Register Appendix B, the score for the third quarter shows that 3 are net red, 4 are net amber, and 12 net green. So therefore 16 or 84% of the risks are satisfactorily managed. The net red risks are R1, potential failure to provide adequate accommodation to meet the needs of the borough, with consequent impacts for the lives of residents. R4, failure to maintain the economic vibrancy of the borough and town centres. And R20, pandemic, service, social and economic implications. The key changes from the review of the register are the document has been updated to reflect the new organisational structure that came into effect on the 1st of October. All of the risks are now linked to portfolio holders. R4, economic vibrancy, the existing Abbey Street and Levelling Up Fund progress has been updated and planned actions added relating to the supplementary planning document and strategy for town centres, plus agreeing the Vicarage Street regeneration scheme with the County Council. R6, arson or accidental fire, we've added reference to the Town Hall fire prevention arrangements. R10, effectively managing the council's finances. There's been an update on the progress on the appointment of the permanent qualified Section 151 officer. R14, information management. There's a planned action added regarding senior management training and data protection and Freedom of Information Act officer. R20, pandemic, reference to leadership board is now included. R21, freedom of information. We've removed the reference to the external audit and added reference to a dedicated data protection officer. And we've also amended the gross and net risk scores from amber to amber green. R22 failure to deliver the sub-regional recycling facility. The risk owner is now the Director for Public Services. R23 communications actions have been added relating to additional resource for corporate communications approved by Cabinet and LGA social media training for elected members. Appendix C, the Strategic Performance Report Executive Summary, shows that of the 19 performance measures, 9 or 47% are green, 1 6% is amber, and 9 47% are red. The amber and red measures are shown under the areas for improvement within the appendix, and they are council tax collection, business rates collection, working days lost to short-term sickness absence, working days lost to long-term sickness absence, short-term return to work interview compliance within 3 days, the agency staff spend, delivering our future monitoring, health and safety monitoring, and the annual development review process. Appendix D, the summary for the FOI and EIR complaint summary requests. 436 were received and 436 completed. 106 were late, but none are outstanding. And finally, Appendix E, the complaint summary, 777 were received, 771 completed, 282 were late, and 6 are outstanding. And that completes the summary for the third quarter information.
Any member like to speak on this one? Councillor Condacor, Councillor Beetham, Councillor Condacor.
Thank you very much, Chair. Risk 11 about nabcell. We raised this at the Audit Committee. There is an issue that the thing that takes it from a high risk to a lower risk is all things like the Shareholders Committee, and it's not been meeting. So I think that needs to be thought about in terms of making sure these things that are the mitigations to make sure that nabcell hasn't got increased liabilities we don't know about, is actually either the Audit Committee looking at it, which it isn't doing, or the nabcell Shareholders Committee looking at these things. So I would like a comment or to flag effectively we haven't been covering that risk off enough, and obviously during the pandemic nabcell's had lots of problems, not through its own fault but due to changing circumstances that we should be carefully aware of. And secondly, and most obviously, I hope someone's actually updating the risk register for the impacts of the conflict and war in Yugoslavia, both in terms of what it may do to, if we have hundreds or people taking in refugees here, then you need to have issues with protection and all that stuff of safeguarding. And just generally, it's useful to have it on the radar, even if it's a long way off and it might not, it's a very unlikely risk. The consequences are in the very serious category. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Beetham.
Brilliant, thank you, Chair. So just a few things, just quickly. So in regards to our performance coming out of COVID, I thank you very much for providing the pre-COVID years as we previously requested. Let's try that again, shall we? So first of all, thank you for providing the pre-COVID years as well in the quarters, which is something that we asked for and gladly have now received. I think it shows a lot of positive data there in comparison with us not just matching in a lot of areas but improving upon what it was prior to COVID. Still a lot of work to do, of course, as many counties, councils, either county, local, also have. I was wondering, do you know roughly how Nuneaton and Bedworth Borough Council's recovery is in comparison to other councils of a similar nature as well? So that's the first one. And the second one is just in regards to the complaints, freedom of information requests, what a change from when we first sat into this chamber at the beginning of the year. The backlog is now clear, and you know, that data is up until December 2021, so hopefully we will see a lot less going forward in the future. I was wondering, and you may not know this, so I'd accept a email or anything in response. Roughly how many currently from December onwards are currently breaching, like actively breaching? Thank you.
Can I jump in here, Chair? Yeah.
Indeed, please do.
Yeah. I've got no information on comparison to other councils. Bearing in mind the first point. As regards to FOI and complaints, I think it's testimony to the work the corporate customer services are doing since they've introduced the change, and they've been made responsible for the information. As you say, completing the backlog. We've never, had that many completed before, so signs are that things are really improving in that area.
Thank you. Councillor Beetham, do you need to come back on that at all, or are you happy?
Yeah, I think everyone in this chamber could say that customer service has done an absolutely fantastic job in regards to getting these complaints down and complaint times and FOI times down. I think that's also, I'd like to thank you all.
Thank you. Any other member? Thank you very much for presenting the report tonight, and I hope we can make a note of the comments and the questions, and look forward to receiving the next quarter's report with hopefully improved results again. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Chair.
I haven't done it again, haven't I? Right, moving on to item number 10. A report for noting, which is the actual annual report of this panel, which is, I think, on page 151 of the agenda. As chairman of the panel, it's down to me to present this report, but it's there for everybody to see. It is what it is. It's a list of what the panel's considered over the municipal year, and as I say, it's there for noting. Are we happy to duly note the report? Thank you. Take that as duly noted. Thank you. Moving on to, beg your pardon, Councillor Condacor, sorry.
Yeah, just on that, your report, we said in the report you asked Cabinet to write a letter about the bus stops. I don't know if we got a feedback on that at all.
I believe the letter was written, but we haven't had a response as yet. In fact, I can confirm the report was written because I believe I examined it and made sure it was right before it went out. So, moving on to item 11, the forward plan for noting, which I think you should find on, yeah, there we are. It's 154 of the agenda. Again, this is for noting. Anybody have any comments to make, any observations? Thank you. And the draft work programme, item 12. Again, this is simply for noting. Everybody happy with that? Thank you. Takes us on to any other business. The only point I would just like to make here, apart from thanking everybody for their efforts during the year, is our cooperative member here, Mrs. Ross. Not sure if we're going to be seeing you on this panel in the next municipal year, but I'd just like to propose a vote of thanks for all your help with this panel during this year. Thank you very much. Can we please note that? Thank you. That being the case, nothing else, declare the meeting closed. Thank you.